Okay, and it's Thursday, February 4th, 2021. Do have tutoring after school today from 4:40 to 5:30 if you need help catching up on any of your assignments. That's what I'm here for. If you are missing assignments, I probably sent you a email yesterday. It's time to catch up and start building that muscle. For those of you that are all caught up, woohoo, you rock. Keep doing what you're doing, and you have to suffer to do that. It doesn't just come automatically for anybody, but for those of us that keep practicing, we get stronger, we get used to it. So get it done, get it done, get it done, get it done if you haven't already. The district is pushing this idea of keep cameras on. So that's what they want us to do. That's what they want you to do. I'm supposed to remind you, so I have done that. Today we will focus on tone and register, kind of like we've done before, but also we're going to get into riddle skills and inferencing, the kind of stuff that we need to do well on tests. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. And of course, that mindset, I will do the work now. Those of us that are behind, you know who you are. You're still a good person, but hey, take care of today's work today and then make up something from the past so that you don't continue adding to the pile you're trying to get rid of. Do the quiz today, do the reading today, and then make up another assignment so then you can catch up. So I'll focus on thinking, using riddle skills, and answering questions. And then for close, well, it's just a regular, this is not a graded discussion. The grade is the quiz. Do you think the speech was effective? Do you think that would get people to support spending more money on space exploration and going to the moon? And you can just tell us your opinion on that. And before we do anything else, hey, let's do our positive affirmations so we can tell ourselves what to think and be positive on purpose, because I still got to do it on purpose. I'm sure most of you do too. So come on, say it with me, either out loud or in your head. What are you? I am strong, confident, and successful. Yes, we are. And how do you feel about getting work done? I love getting work done. It feels good when you finish something and you know you did your best, doesn't it? I know it does for me. And how do you feel about schoolwork? The harder I work, the stronger I become. And I completely believe in that. I think a lot of you do too. Okay, and let's do a little Carvajal comedy, because that's how I roll. Check it out. I'm the first person ever to clone myself. Look at that. There's two of him. Isn't that amazing? Wow. That's pretty amazing. I bet you're pretty excited. I'm beside myself. Get it? Clone himself. I'm beside myself. And then it pushes it even further. He's like, what? You did that just to make that joke, didn't you? Best $12 billion I ever spent. That's so silly. I love it. All right, and for the work. Oh, looks like I closed my windows earlier because I had to restart everything. So let's open Schoology back up. English 3. Week 5. And Wednesday's work, if you didn't get it done yesterday, yeah, get it done today after you do today's work. So for today's work, let me see. It's the Space Race speech quiz. So for the quiz, we're going to do it in Socrative. And this same information is actually on the doc that you can open up and create your own. So you click to open up your own doc. It looks different for you, of course, than it does for me. And we've got this speech, JFK's Race to Space speech from 1962. And we're going to read that together. And then we're going to take the quiz. And all the stuff that we practice in this class is very beneficial, right? Being able to imagine what we're reading, picturing it as we're reading it, and then test taking skills for multiple choice. We haven't talked about that in a while. But remember, using riddle skills You want to find the answer that matches all the details and requirements. So if you've got a riddle that says what's yellow and green and sings all day, well, there's three different things you're looking for, and you have to be sure that you've got all the details that match in the answer, so you can get it right. It's the same thing when you're reading these questions. They may be asking you for one or more things. You need to be sure you understand what they're asking you, so then you can pick the right answer. So be sure you're using riddle skills. And of course, read the questions carefully, right? If there's three different things that they're asking about and you see one and you pick that answer, well, you haven't paid close enough attention. And that's why I say highlight the key words. So that forces you to pay closer attention and look at what's important, so then you can find the answer. And of course, read all the answers. Don't just stop because you found a decent answer. Read all of them because there might be a better one, right? So if you find two good answers, then you want to have to judge between them. Go back and verify, right? If it says in paragraph 8, blah, 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 well, then go back to paragraph 8, look for the details. And if there's two good answers, well, pick the one that's closest to the main idea. And like I said before, you can usually find the main idea at the beginning or at the end. And that's just standard for nonfiction kind of stuff like that. All right, so let's read along with me. If you're not paying attention, pay attention. You're a good person. Put your phone aside, put your game aside, and let's focus on this so we can make a good grade on this quiz. Okay, JFK's race to space speech. And it is important, as usual, to read this background information, right? Because it gives you information to help you imagine what you're reading. So it says John F. Kennedy served as the 35th president of the United States. He was president during the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Civil Rights Movement, and the beginning of the U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War. Kennedy was assassinated on November 22nd, 1963. He delivered this speech about space to a large audience at Rice University in Houston, Texas. Right, so he was in Texas, in Houston, Rice University, on September 12th, 1962. A year earlier, a Russian had become the first human to orbit the Earth. By 1969, Americans succeeded in being the first to walk on the moon. As you read the speech, consider what space exploration represented to the Americans at that time. All right, read along with me. There's President Kennedy. You can imagine the football field is probably completely covered with people and the stadium all around him. Behind him, of course, there's nobody, but you can imagine all the people there at this university listening to the president speak. And of course, when he says President Pitzer, he's talking about the university president. He's president of the U.S. Pitzer is president of Rice University, so that's what's going on there. All right, let's get started. President Pitzer, Mr. Vice President, Governor, Congressman Thomas, Senator Wiley, and Congressman Miller, Mr. Webb, Mr. Bell, scientists, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate your president having made me an honorary visiting professor, and I will assure you that my first lecture will be very brief. I am delighted to be here, and I'm particularly delighted to be here on this occasion. We meet at a college noted for knowledge, in a city noted for progress, in a state noted for strength, and we stand in need of all three, for we meet in an hour of change and challenge, in a decade of hope and fear, in an age of both knowledge and ignorance. The greater our knowledge increases, the greater our ignorance unfolds, right? The more you know, the more you realize you have more to learn. Despite the striking fact that most of the scientists that the world has ever known are alive and working today, despite the fact that this nation's own scientific manpower is doubling every 12 years, at a rate of growth more than 3 times that of our population as a whole, despite that the vast stretches of the unknown and the unanswered and the unfinished still far outstrip our collective comprehension, no man can fully grasp how far and how fast we have come, but condense, if you will, the 50,000 years of men's recorded history into a time span of but half a century, right? So we're going to talk about 50,000 years, but think of it as only 50 years. And that's what he's going to do here, right? He's going to condense it down to that. Stated in these terms, we know very little about the first 40 years, except at the end of them, advanced man had learned to use the skins of animals to cover them. Then about 10 years ago, under this standard, man emerged from his caves to construct other kinds of shelter. Only 5 years ago, man learned to write and use a cart with wheels. Christianity began less than 2 years ago. The printing press came this year, and then less than 2 months ago, during this whole 50-year span of human history, the steam engine provided a new source of power. Newton explored the meaning of gravity. Last month, electric lights and telephones and automobiles and airplanes became available. Only last week did we develop penicillin and television and nuclear power. And now, if America's new spacecraft succeeds in reaching Venus, we will have literally reached the stars before midnight tonight. This is a breathtaking pace, and such a pace cannot help but create new ills as it dispels old, new ignorance, new problems, new dangers. Surely the opening vistas of space promise high cost and hardships as well as high reward. So it is not surprising that some would have us stay where we are a little longer to rest, to wait. But this city of Houston, this state of Texas, this country of the United States was not built by those who waited and rested and wished to look behind them. This country was conquered by those who moved forward, and so will space. William Bradford, speaking in 1630 on the founding of the Plymouth Bay Colony, said that all great and honorable actions are accompanied with great difficulties, and both must be enterprised and overcome with answerable courage. If this capsule history of our progress teaches us anything, it is that man, in his quest for knowledge and progress, is determined and cannot be deterred. The exploration of space will go ahead, whether we join it or not. And it is one of the great adventures of all time, and no nation which expects to be the leader of other nations can expect to stay behind in the race for space. Those who came before us made certain that this country rode the first waves of the industrial revolutions, the first waves of modern invention, and the first wave of nuclear power. And this generation does not intend to founder in the backwash of the coming age of space. We mean to be a part of it. We mean to lead it. For the eyes of the world now look into space, to the moon and to the planets beyond. And we have vowed that we shall not see it governed by a hostile flag of conquest, but by a banner of freedom and peace. We have vowed that we shall not see space filled with weapons of mass destruction, but with instruments of knowledge and understanding. Yet the vows of this nation can only be fulfilled if we in this nation are first. And therefore we intend to be first. In short, our leadership in science and in industry, our hopes for peace and security, our obligations to ourselves as well as others, all require us to make this effort to solve these mysteries, to solve them for the good of all men, and to become the world's leading spacefaring nation. We set sail on this new sea because there is new knowledge to be gained and new rights to be won, and they must be won and used for the progress of all people. For space science, like nuclear science and all technology, has no conscience of its own. Whether it will become a force of good or ill depends on man, and only if the United States occupies a position of preeminence can we help decide whether this new ocean will be a sea of peace or a new terrifying theater of war. I do not say that we should or will go unprotected against the hostile misuse of space any more than we go unprotected against the hostile use of land or sea. But I do say that space can be explored and mastered without feeding the fires of war, without repeating the mistakes that man has made, extending his writ around this globe of ours. There is no strife, no prejudice, no national conflict in outer space as yet. Its hazards are hostile to us all. Its conquest deserves the best of all mankind, and its opportunity for peaceful cooperation may never come again. But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard, because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills, because that challenge is one that we are willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one which we intend to win, and the others too. It is for these reasons that I regard the decision last year to shift our efforts in space from low to high gear as among the most important decisions that will be made during my incumbency in the office of the presidency. And finally, the space effort itself, while still in its infancy, has already created a great number of new companies and tens of thousands of jobs. Space and related industries are generating new demands and investment in skilled personnel, and this city and this state and this region will share greatly in this growth. What was once the furthest outpost on the old frontier of the West will be the furthest outpost on the new frontier of science and space. Houston, your city of Houston, with its manned spacecraft center, will become the heart of a large scientific and engineering community. During the next 5 years, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration expects to double the number of scientists and engineers in this area, to increase its outlays for salaries and expenses to $60 million a year, to invest some $200 million in plant and laboratory facilities, and to direct or contract for new space efforts, over $1 billion from this center in this city. Many years ago, the great British explorer George Mallory, who was to die on Mount Everest, was asked why he wanted to climb it. He said, because it is there. Well, space is there, and we're going to climb it. And the moon and the planets are there, and new hopes for knowledge and peace are there. And therefore, as we set sail, we ask God's blessing on the most hazardous and dangerous and greatest adventure on which man has ever embarked. Thank you. Okay, so click here to take the quiz on Socrative. It'll open up. Be sure and put last name first, Carvajal Stephen, not Stephen Carvajal, right? Class code, of course, is Carvajal 5. Multiple choice questions. Remember, when you're doing nonfiction especially, the last paragraph and the first paragraph usually hold the main idea. First paragraph is just introduction, so I would look at this one when we're trying to figure out, right? Which statement best summarizes the central idea of the speech. It's only questions 1 through 5. And the lowest grade you can make is a 60, so keep that in mind. Even if you do terrible, it's not going to give you a 0 or anything like that. So do your best. Get yourself a 90 or 100. And let me know if you're not sure how to do anything. I'm here to help you.